It's my pleasure to welcome our speaker, Professor Raquel Paraiso from UW-Madison, who will be speaking about some of your really fantastic work in ethnomusicology. Raquel and Pancho yesterday did a workshop with elementary students in Middleton at Northside Elementary. That was fantastic. Minds were blown. There was lots of excitement about the workshop. And so I'm excited to see the connection between that and some of the research that you're working on. So thank you so much, Raquel, for being here today.
Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you LACIS for organizing this event. I'm very happy to talk about part of my research. I will be reading my my lecture. So music is integral to both religious and secular celebrations in the Huasteca region of northeastern Mexico. Throughout music, symbolic and identity processes that are fundamental to the constitution of such groups take place. All these processes occur in spaces that gain meaning and are built through music. So in my presentation today, I study the construction of place and space through music and sound in Xochitine, Carnival, and Chantolo, 3 celebrations in 3 communities from the Huasteca region of Veracruz and Hidalgo states, where traditional music is key to the festivities. My presentation on Huasteca music is articulated around 3 main ideas that bring together notions of sound, space, and time. First, the construction of a space through music and the act of listening in that space, which is situated and mediated. Mediation transforms both elements involved in the relation. Second, the idea that practices of sound production, listening, and corporality determine the space and vice versa. Lastly, the idea that group symbolic and identity processes take place in the space of the musical experience. Encompassing these 3 main concepts and ideas is my understanding that the production of a space and place through music is a process determined by the experience of the collective, the meaning of the musical experience, and the sound itself. The space becomes a material and immaterial domain that contains sound, affective, and embodied memory. Informing some of my notions of space is the work by the French philosopher Henri Lefebvre. In his work from 1974, The Production of Space, Lefebvre launched his view of space as a social construction. His proposition that space is a social product and not an absolute of hegemonic quantity that exists outside of material reality or lived experience changed many conceptualizations of space. Of particular interest for my work in his non-fragmented conceptual triad of space as perceived, which is spatial practices, conceived, or the representation of space, and lived, spaces of representation. Thus, I choose 3 celebrations in 3 communities of the Huasteca region to talk about the production of a space place through music. In Jojocapa, Veracruz, we will listen to sones de Xochitine. In Xochiatipan, Hidalgo, sones de Carnaval. And in Macustepetla, Hidalgo, sones de Chantolo. I will talk about 3 musical experiences in 3 different festivities, times, spaces, and places. So join me on the journey here, and if you come to Veracruz, I will take you to those places. Briefly, I will say that the Huasteca region is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multilingual cultural region located in northeastern Mexico. Multiple and diverse in its biculturalism, bioculturalism, a population of indigenous people of diverse ethnic groups, like the ones that you have there. There are a lot of Tenec, which is the name of the region comes from the particular groups. They are the Huastecos, the Huastecs, Yuhu or Otomíes, Misic Picni, Tepehuas, Totonacas, Pames, that they themselves named Chiwi, Imaselwame, or Nahuas. The name in capital letters are the names that they chose to be just self-attribution. So in the region, there's a lot of these indigenous people mixed with mestizos and Afro-Mexicans. Within its diversity, certain unifying elements help us understand the region. One of these elements is the conception of music, usually inseparable from dance, as a central element in festivities and celebrations. Celebrations are not conceived without offerings, without food, and without affective, material, or spiritual retributions, all connected to and built from the environment, the group's history, and current events. Thus, music is a thread that connects thought and belief. Huastecan beliefs and aesthetics are embedded in the social and cultural makeup of the region, particularly in musical and dance expressions. With the arrival of the Spanish and the imposition of the Catholic religion, there were strong processes of syncretism and acculturation that resulted in the overlapping of ceremonial calendars. The religious calendar, with its main festivities of Chantolo or All Saints, Christmas, Carnival, and Easter, and the agricultural calendar, which is specifically centered around the cultivation and harvesting of corn, a basic product in the Huasteca that is conceived as the giver of life and thought. There is music for every celebration, and many of these celebrations are connected to myths that are mainly dedicated to corn. Over time, through the different processes of syncretism and popular religiosity, the dances were dedicated to the Catholic saints, and the saints and their representations, particularly through the functions that were assigned to them in relation to nature's forces, became part of the collective memory and the symbolically reworked worships. Music is central to these celebrations, as well as to those related to the cycle of life, such as baptisms, weddings, or wakes, and in a great variety of ceremonies connected with rituals through which men express their gratitude to the gods and ask for the balance between the cosmos and the cycles of life. And of course, also in the Huapangos, festive occasions in which life and culture are celebrated and in which the festive experience is shared and transcend the moment through the connection established between present and past, between the cultural and the social. Music and dance are an essential part of the ritual within the celebration. The ritual functions as a guide, an element that provides unity and cohesiveness to the group. Celebrations are also a vehicle for the transmission of shared knowledge. They take place in a time and space that is updated and reconstructed in the present. On each occasion, the musical experience helps to build community and reinforces the sense of belonging in the process of articulating the articulation of cultural, ethnic, regional, and collective identities. Particularly in cycle celebrations, the space where they take place becomes significant through music, which constructs a physical and affective space through the experience that interconnects thoughts, body, and senses. In addition, music has the vocative power of indexical signs, which connect a sign to an object so that they can relate, for example, a certain type of music or a particular piece to a special occasion. These signs, as conceived by Peirce's semiotic theory, are anything perceived by an observer that has the function of evoking something or bringing something to the memory of that observer. The identification derived from that evocation is affective and cognitive and involves the subject in full and the place and time of listening. It is the whole experience and everything it involves. In turn, the musical experience is built, determined, and conditioned by place and space, from ways of listening and music production to embodied ways of experiencing music and dance, shared knowledge, ideology, and beliefs. The images that sound itself summons are intimately influenced by the space in which that sound takes place. The connections between music and place are many, and both are constitutive of culture. Moreover, as Sarah Cohen argues, music creates its own time, space, and movement, and takes people out of the ordinary time. What is interesting to think and feel in these musical experiences is that the relationship between the physical presence of music in particular place and how sound and all that it gathers and catalyzes affect our senses, our emotions, and our thoughts. Music and auditory experiences draw and reconfigure space in the space, and the space determines auditory and musical experience. Space and music are constructed in an articulated way, as are the ways of listening and music production. In the same sense, as Georgina Bourne states, quote, music is transformed by its social manifestations or embodiments, and the social is produced and transformed by music, end quote. The three examples of music experiences I'm going to present take place outdoors. In the reconfiguration of spaces, if the reconfiguration of spaces is true for indoor musical experiences, like in sound installations, for example, it is equally true for outdoor ones. The experience of music and sound is intrinsically tied to time, space, and sonic environment. Music and sound, space and time, subjectivity and sociality are immanent in the experience of music and sound, and all are continually involved in the mediation of the other terms. We are in Jocapa. It is December 12, 2015, and I accompany Don Fidencio Ramirez through the streets of his community. He is a traditional musician, a violinist. Although he plays different genres of Huasteco music, today he plays sones de Xochitini and inditas. His way of thinking, speaking, expressing himself, creating, and probably understanding music are part of growing up and living in this particular community in northern Veracruz, and the inner structure, poetry, and thought of his mother tongue, Nahuatl. He is playing for the Virgin of Guadalupe on her festivity. This year, there are 3 mayordomos, 3 days of play music at each mayordomos on the road, in the procession, and in church. So you heard Sones de Xochitine at the very beginning, and then you heard the women singing Catholic hymns, and then you hear the banda, the wind band performing Huasteco dances and music. Sones de Xochitine, originally dedicated to Chicomezochitl, the deity of corn in human form, boy-girl duality, are currently played and danced during religious festivities such as Patron Saint or Virgin of Guadalupe celebrations, posadas, or other Christmas-related festivities, or during the Christmas holidays. Each community chooses when to dance. Symbolically, Chicomezochitl gave life to humanity and was sacrificed for them. In return, humans give life to Chicomezochitl through the ceremony. Humanity must return the gift granted by the deity. Music and dance are part of the retribution required for the ceremony to be effective. Xochitine is dance for the deity. Then music and dance are offerings to the gods. Among others, ethnomusicologist Camacho Diaz points out how men must return the gifts granted by this deity, and music and dance are conceived as a prayer, a part of the retribution. Playing and dancing is a form of sacrifice, endows musicians and dancers with divinity. The community think of them as sacred, and as such, they acquire symbolic power. Multiple processes take place in the 3 days in which Don Fidencio plays music. Directly or indirectly, materially or immaterially, the whole community is involved in the celebration. Jojocapa is transformed into Xochitine. The sound of the bell announces the procession. The music transforms the streets. The occasion gathers the community, and the sound of the bodies and their steps marks the way and space. There is a connecting thread that moves them. The ritual invokes, propitiates, and provides. The ritual is necessary to maintain the balance of the universe. The celebration takes place in a physical and emotional space that is elaborated through sound and corporality. Music moves the physical organization of the people involved in at the moment, musicians, dancers, or other attendees, and creates a space for participation and listening. It moves the dancers, who originally were men, but in this case are girls and young women due to migration in the region. It brings the group together and updates their senses of belonging. Music also moves the road, which is built through it, the steps while walking, the dancers, the guajes or the rattles, the conversations, the laughter, the prayers of the rezanderas, the wind band, and the ecosystem at the moment. Listening, listening is situated physically and ideologically. Outdoors, many circumstances condition the ways of listening. You can hear the trio when you are next to it, but while walking on the path, it gets lost, as we have been able to hear and see in this video. Listening is relative to perception and depends not only on the physical place from where you listen, but also on the individuals, their listening practices, their ideology, their thinking, and their knowing. We listen from our bodies, from our senses, our social beings, and our beliefs. The musical experience encompasses everything: the trio, the steps, the conversations, the prayers, the colors, the air, the gesture, the band, the laughter, the silence, the ways of understanding, the belief, the feeling that the group experience confers. It belongs to the place and the moment. Also, there is the social commitment that exists within the community to fulfill roles such as stewardship, which gives prestige and are at the same time an obligation to the community. Thus, places are socially produced by becoming places for social activity and symbolic activity. Music and sound are catalysts for creating lived spaces. The space, the place, is embodied by being physically experienced by the collectivity when walking, moving, standing, breathing, listening, and understanding that listening is situated and culturally and socially mediated. In the experience of music, the musicking, there is an old and an updated thought, a community that renews social and cultural categories through the experience of music in a space that determines and by which it allows itself to be determined. The second time we returned to the Carnaval in Sontecomatlan in northern Veracruz state, we also went to Xochatipan in the state of Hidalgo. Only a line in a map tells you that it is a different state, a line that probably only makes sense for geopolitical interest. A scant hour from Sontecomatlan, Xochatipan, the birthplace of the great composer Nicandro Castillo, seems to hang high in the mountains with all its steep streets. We arrived early that day in foggy weather. In one of the few places open at that hour, we had some bocoles for breakfast, accompanied by a cup of weak and thin coffee, as it is preferred in the region. There were several of us. Don Fego knew the place very well. Since he was very young, Nicandro Castillo would ask him to accompany him on guitar and sing to his guapangos. Arturo and Rosmilda were also there. And we, Pancho, Ralph, Carol, and me. It was the first time for Ralph and Carol to experience a carnival in the Huasteca. The fiesta was impossible to have imagined before, and it was impossible to forget it afterward. Carol danced with a masked group. She became one of them. We followed the dancers from place to place. Sones de Carnaval, like those of Xochitine and Chantolo and many others in the traditional repertoire of the Huasteca, are performed at specific celebrations and serve particular purposes. In Carnival and Chantolo, music is the medium through which communication is established between the living and the dead. The ancestors are invoked through it. Wind bands or Huasteco trios play sones de Carnaval for the masked people or members of the cuadrilla or comparsa to dance, in whom they are reincarnated during the days of the celebration. They dance for the dead who come back to life. The body is inhabited and transcended. In the celebration, the sound, music, listening, and understanding of these three elements are a guide, part of the collective memory and scaffolding of a hardcore of elements that make up the worldview of the group. The time and space of the celebration mark the experience. Sones de Carnaval are powerful, loud. They are meant to dance, to stomp in groups, to let the body move in a relaxed way with the permissiveness that the carnival allows. The group, the soil, or the cement, flat or sloping, receives this rhythmic music and the bodies delimit the space of action. The music is heard beyond the zapateado. The production of sound accentuated, rhythmically constant, and the listening intermingle with the body. The body functions as a group knowledge system and contains mnemonic structures that allow the understanding of sound from past experiences. Dancing bodies and sound are socially and culturally constructed and are preserved mainly in memory. Las Veles says that, quote, sound is intrinsically relational, and the core of sound art is an activation of the existing relation between sound and space. Sound and space converse with multiplying and expanding the point of attention or the source of sound, end quote. The music from the trio and the band confer an indisputable force to the space. The dance, ordered and disordered at the same time, is part of the embodied experience of the celebration, which would not be possible without its music and sound, without the movement and the path in that space. Despite not being from there, in Carol will remain the memory of the space, in the fog, on the slope, the group, her being with the group, dancing to the Sones de Carnaval performed by the trio or the band. I went for the first time to Macustepetla in 2010. Macustepetla is a community near Huejutla, Hidalgo. Ever since, I return there whenever I can, when I'm in the Huasteca for Chantolo celebration. I still remember the intoxication of smells, flavor, colors, people, and music the first time I went. I remember faces, sounds, chants, music. The masked group makes its way among those present and dance on the tombs. The cemetery feels, and it is very much alive. It is necessary to arrive early at dawn. The tombs have their offerings. The candles are in the new horse-like clay pots that must be brand new and probably have been bought in the market the previous Sunday. Also in the offerings, los morrales, tamales, sweet bread, the fireproof and mortal Coca-Cola, the strong refino. The trio that my friend's compadre hired to bring sones huastecos to his late wife is playing. Beyond the brass band, beyond the masked ones, their zapateado, their shouts, the cacophony of simultaneity as well. Firecrackers, shouts behind the masks, prayers in Nahuatl and Spanish, murmurs of everything and everyone. Everything is part of the moment, of the day, of the special, of the celebration. It is the big celebration of the Huasteca. It is All Saints, Chantolo, Micahuilic. Music, a central symbolic language in the ritual process, is the channel of communication between humans and the gods. Its efficiency takes place in the ritual context. Schilling comments that the collective symbols acquire and retain their efficacy in the minds and feelings of individuals because they carry attached to them the energies associated with what people experience as sacred to the life of the group. Sound itself is a communicator of ideas and thoughts. The musical experience places the musicians and dancers, elements of sacrifice and offering, as well as the other participants and elements involved in the experience, in a level that connects with the deity. Music and dance are fundamental to the effectiveness of the ritual. Men must return the gifts granted by the deity, and music and dance are conceived as prayers. The symbolic meaning of music is framed in celebration, something that does not happen every day, that cyclically occurs to maintain balance in life, an agreement with spirituality, positive and negative forces, and the reconciliation with existence. In the memory, when thinking about the moment, I do not doubt that the place will be evoked through music. Affectivity and nostalgia are also pieces that are part of that space-time music equation. Music produces the place and its narrative through sound, physical bodies and their movements, and all the elements that make up the musical experience. From the moment that the trio, the prayers, and the brass band play simultaneously, a way of understanding music is constructed, a way of listening, a cultural construction of a space that manifests itself in a certain sonority, chosen to move our affection, our feeling, and our intention and beliefs. Thank you. So 3 sound spaces, completely different, 3 places marked by music and created by music. Do you like it? So come with me to Mexico. I will bring you to these celebrations. Questions?
Yeah, we got a lot of time here, folks. So.
Or comments? Albert, I have a question for Luis.
I really liked the photographs, and it seemed like you were very present without projecting yourself in the way of the celebration. And I just wondered how receptive are they to the people being photographed, or the camera seems like it's not intrusive at all.
In this particular place, the very last place, Macustepetla, is an indigenous community, and it is an indigenous cemetery. Usually indigenous people don't feel comfortable with cameras, but in this particular occasion, they don't mind at all. In this particular day, where you come to the cemetery, and the first thing that they do is they hand you some food, tamales and chocolate for them to try. And they don't mind that you're recording or taking photographs in this particular occasion. Carnival, you can take as many pictures as you want. They don't care. They don't mind. They are masks. Nothing can happen. And in the other celebration, Xochitine, because I already was working with Don Fidencio, I kind of became part of the community, so it was easier for me to be there. They really didn't mind that I was recording them or taking photographs. So it depends on the communities, and we as foreigners, we always need to be very aware of what the community wants and ask permission for sure. Yeah. Kim.
In the first community, in the procession, it was young girls. I think you said that because the men had left. Was that for labor reasons?
For labor reasons.
Mm-hmm. And the girls taking on that role, was it begrudgingly, or was it just sort of matter of factly? How did that sort of transition?
Sorry, would you actually do a favor for the folks on Zoom?
Oh,
and just repeat the,
yeah, I'm gonna repeat the question. So in the first community in Hohokapa, the girls are dancing, and Kim is wondering. I mentioned that it was for migration reasons. There's a big problem in migration in the Huasteca region because of poverty and lack of work. That many people either migrate to the United States or to the big cities, Mexico City in particular, or northern Monterrey, and they return for this festivity. So someone said, well, we don't have men, why not we do a group of girls? And they said, yes, it's the moment to do it. What I'm wondering, this is happening throughout the Huasteca. Many women are taking over they become dancers. They are not fulfilling the roles of providing the food and providing all the other work that women generally do for the fiesta to be able to happen. They cook, they prepare the house, they attend to everything. And men are musicians, and men are the ones who dance. Now women dance and women play music. So what I want to find out, in further visits will be, will the ritual be effective if it's a woman dancing? How do they feel about this? In many communities and in some of the places where I have been and I have asked this question, they said, yeah, it works this way, but it depending, like Xochitine, for example, is a particular strong dance, but it's really connected to the divinity and how they feel that the gods just created the world. First of all, the world was created with the gods sent some sun to the humanity because the world was in darkness, but the sun was so very strong and humanity was destroyed. Then they tried to build humanity out of clay, but humanity was very weak. Finally, they gave corn to humanity, and this humanity survived. So Chitine has that thought and that idea of ritual. Over time, I don't know how much of this thought people know. They just dance because they are dancing for the Virgin, basically, and they are not thinking anymore about deeper thoughts and deeper meanings. So, and I think that this is happening throughout the Huasteca. Did I answer your question, Kim? Okay.
There were people dancing in the cemetery, but they were masked.
People were dancing where?
In the cemetery.
In the cemetery.
Masks.
With the masks. In Macustepetla, the cemetery, people are dancing with the mask. During Chantolo, during All Saints celebration, so those who had passed away, they returned to life, and they returned to the level where we live, to the level of the living. They wear masks, so death cannot recognize them, and you are supposed to be dancing all day, all night, for the 3 or 4 days that the celebration lasts. So they go to the cemeteries, they dance also in the streets, and that's why they have masks. I don't know, you could hear with the entire, soundscape that was happening. So the trio is performing for them. They go from tomb to tomb. You can give them some money. You can ask them to play different songs and give them, it's symbolical. They cannot ask for money. It's a gift that you give the group. And with that money, they will get together at the end of the month, which is when the dead return to the realm where they live in the November 30th. And the dancers, the group gathers and have, like just a fiesta with food and drinks and whatnot. Yeah, and that's why they also, some people say that with the dancing and the steps on the tombs, they are calling also the death for them to return. When they return is the way we offer food and we offer everything that our ancestors liked. Like if you pass away, then you like sweets, or you like Coca-Cola, or you like drinks, and that's what is put in the tombs. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a significance to this, either the color orange or these particular orange flowers, because it looked like they were in almost every, you got them up there, but they were in almost every clip or photo you showed. And also, I wondered about the clothing that the women wear, like your shirt, if the embroidery is significant to like the community. It seemed like some of them had like similar designs.
So I'm going to answer the first question that Sarah is asking. It's asking what is the meaning of the orange flower? So that flower is called cempasúchil, and is the flower of the dead. Is the flower of Day of the Dead. In fact, they say that Chantolo All Saints starts in June 24th, which is solstice, right? And that's when they start planting the flowers. So those flowers start to be planted in June, and by the beginning of November, that's what you collect. And yeah, you cannot have the offerings without that flower. That flower, and also a red one that they call moco de pavo, something like that. So, but this is the, and just to make a note here, also it's good to buy flowers that are planted in Mexico, not imported from China. So which is something that is happening. And then, so Sarah is asking about the women in the last cemetery in Macustepetla wearing blouses. So the blouses that they wear are, that particular embroidery is from that particular part of from their community or just the locality. And you can recognize that they are from that particular place in Hidalgo because of the embroidery. Usually you think that they will be just using that like on a Sunday or like in a, but they use it every day. Is the blouse that they wear. Probably they will have one for Sundays, some for special occasions, but that's how they wear. My blouse is from, if you see the embroidery, this is from Chicontepec, which is in northern Veracruz. And so if you are knowledgeable, you will also relate this to that particular location. And this happened through, many different parts of Mexico where still strong traditional cultures are taking place. It happens with blouses, but it happens with huipiles, which is a traditional piece that you can also recognize where women are in Mexico, also rebosos. And so there is a revival of this clothing, like people like me. At the beginning, I didn't feel comfortable wearing this because it's not part of my culture. But later on, I start buying, just to support the economy and start using them and become part of me. So it's, thank you.
You can talk more about the role of nostalgia, because you were explaining how nostalgia is a part of the social construction of these places. And with music, this happens that we listen to a song and it's very evocative. You can feel like you are in a different place or in a different point in your life. So I would like to hear, especially because you have different generations in this tradition.
Adriana is wondering about nostalgia, for me to talk a little bit more about nostalgia and music. Nostalgia is a very big element in music. I don't think that we talk enough about that. Food and music and feeling is like these images that come to you. Like and smell, we cannot talk about, or we can talk about smell, but it's difficult to, smell doesn't have sound. But I think of the food that I'm missing is my mom's food, right? And it's a smell that comes right away. And it's like nostalgia is part of our musical experiences and comes in our memory. They are ingrained in our memories, from childhood to all different experiences when we are growing up. Still, there are pieces of music. Some pieces of music surprise me that all of a sudden I hear, and I want to cry. I don't know what it is. It's a particular set of chords or a melody, and I cannot help it. And it's something that goes into my system. So music is made out of different signs, and those signs connect directly with that evocation of whatever, a sentiment, a food, an image, a color. And that's why all this is in us, and it's part of whatever culture we have. It could be the chosen culture, or it could be your own childhood. So that's why it's very important, that we think about all this from our senses, from our body. Oftentimes we think about this like mental processes, and it's not true. Sometimes we just need to let the body breathe and what is happening, Like when I work on space, I'm always aware of what is happening. At the beginning, there was a fan going, and then it stopped. And it's like all of us have particular, imprint on the space, not from our bodies and our ways of listening and our ways of creating the soundscape and the sound mark of whatever we are. Like thinking also about music, traditional music that happens outdoors. When you go to church or to any other place that has a very symbolic and very strong ritual that is charged symbolically, ritually, it's very moving. And when you experience that collectively, it's also very moving. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was obvious the multi-generational participation in that, but you also been talking about confidence.
See.
How is that knowledge still transmitted? Big students, or they go to him, or?
Don Fidencio lives in a very remote community, so he doesn't have students. Basically, he's very well respected. He plays sones de carnaval beautifully, and I remember when I was there doing this part of the research with him, I was actually recording his repertoire of sones de carnaval. That book is coming up at the end of May, and so I was talking with him. I was setting up when I was going to be working with him. I said, okay, you can come in December. Anyway, I was in December there, Someone came from a community in Santa Maria la Victoria, it's a Otomi community. He came to ask for just to reserve him for the carnival dates. And so if he cannot make it on those particular dates, they will change the carnival dates, the celebration. But Don Fidencio doesn't have students because, but he has taught his son, he plays with his son. But there are many other older musicians who have taught different musicians. In Mexico right now, I think that we are lacking like a middle generation of musicians. I mean, there's like musicians between 35 and 45. There are a few, and they are very good musicians, or at least the ones whom I know, who have individually been interested in the music and going to find the musicians and learning from them. These musicians, middle generation, they have a lot of students and they are teaching this. How music is transmitted nowadays, there's a lot of music schools and collectives that where children are learning how to play music, except that many of the repertoire, this repertoire of traditional sones that you are listening today, they don't play them. They don't like that. They learn sones de Chantolo, sones de Carnaval, and nothing else. Like they don't learn Xochitine, they don't learn, there's a big repertoire of music for corn ceremonies, from planting the corn, when the corn is growing up, when the corn is a little bit grown up. Constantly there are ceremonies, and there might be 50 sones for just that little ceremony when they plant the corn. Those 50 sones, the person who plays them is the only one who knows them. They are not. So it's a big need of just going and at least record this music so it won't be lost, So.
In the cemetery, there was somebody reading the book. What were they reading?
In Macustepetla, there was somebody reading a book. So they are saying prayers for those who are in the tomb. They speak Nahuatl and Spanish, and sometimes they do it in both languages. And you can call them up and just send a prayer to those who are in the tomb, or you tell them the name of the people who are deceased and that you want the rezandero to give the prayer for them. So that's.
In Mexico, are there repositories of music, digital music, like music other than your personal?
Are there repositories of music in Mexico? They are here and there. The INA, the Fonoteca del INA, has a big collection. It's called Testimonio Musical de México. And so there are some projects like mine, like what I'm going to publish in the next weeks. They are like the 50 sones that I recorded from Don Fidencio. And so like, I transcribe the music in music scores, and so it will be digital and physical. And so the book will have like a QR code that you can connect to, that it will connect to a repository online from the Universidad Veracruzana, and you can listen to the music and download. So I want to see if I'm able to do, at least to put up all the other transcriptions that I have done. I have done very little compared with what is out there. So in this collection from the INA, you have different projects that are recorded, but not enough for the amount of music that is there. I'm just talking about, I'm working on Northern Veracruz. So it's like you go to Hidalgo and they have, another enormous amount of sones, the All Saints sones that they perform for Chantolo, but it's in a different style, And so there's not much done. So we need more ethnomusicologists or just people interested. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Raquel, for this lovely presentation. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit to some of our students I know there are some that are interested in doing ethnographic research, field work. Are there tidbits of wisdom that you can share that will help your practice and really thoughtful ethnographic
So Sarah is wondering if I can talk a little bit about how to do ethnography in at least in my field or the region. The first thing is you need to know where you're going, and you need to know someone there. Like it's particularly when you go to communities that are very difficult to get physically, and also like if we are talking about indigenous people, it takes very long time because I don't speak the language. I don't speak Nahuatl, or I don't speak Otomi. So when I did my postdoc, my friend Arturo Castillo, I went to him and he accompanied me to introduce me to Don Fidencio, and accompanied me to introduce me to the other person, another musician that I transcribed Sones de Chantolo from. So Arturo was my passport in the Huasteca region. Then you have to start learning the codes, just be aware. You don't speak the language, but you know that if they serve you coffee. I remember that one of the days, it was very early in the morning, and we came to visit a musician. On the way, they gave us coffee. We just had breakfast, and I say, oh, no, thank you. Thank you so much, but I cannot have this coffee now. I shouldn't have done that. It's like, Arturo said, you don't do that, later. So I learned my lesson. So even if they serve you very spicy food, you eat it. Even if you don't. So with time, just by knowing people, so they will also be, they know that I don't eat spicy food, but I make sure that I tell them I'm very happy with beans and rice, or a tortilla. But be sensitive to the people. That's the first thing, and get to know them anyhow. Just be respectful to them and listen and what they have to do. When I started doing my first research in the field, I had all these ideas coming from school, like you have to do research this way, and you have to ask permission to do this, and then you have to set your set of questions. I need to research this, and I have this list of questions. That doesn't work. It's because you have to learn how to ask the questions in the way they understand. Or like if they are asking you, why do you have that long hair? No, you don't ask that, just ask like, you have a beautiful hair. Just tell me how you grow it. Why do you grow it? It's something special. So to have a friend or someone who can introduce you to someone, or if you don't have a friend, you make sure that you connect with any kind of authority in small communities. That is very important. And also any kind of academic connections. If you have academic connections, just make sure that you go with a letter that say who you are and that you have permission to do this, if that is okay. When we went to record Don Fidencio in Santa Maria la Victoria, the first thing that we did, we went to the mayor to introduce ourselves. We were with another person and said, these are my friends. They are coming to visit Don Fidencio because they know them. Can they stay with you? So he looked suspicious to us at the very beginning. The moment that our friends start talking to him, said, of course, you can stay with us all day. You can sleep here. You can just sit and have breakfast. And then they are very welcome. But you need to have that approach that I think is just when we are sensitive to the other person and we are just there humbly, just to do our job. I don't know if that works, but, and then be very patient. Sometimes our sense of time is very different to other people's senses of time, Sometimes we rush into things, and for them things take time. And sometimes when you are asked a question, they are not going to answer you that day. They might answer you 3 days later, but you will get your answer, And so you can make a lot of other researches in between and gather a lot of information that later on is going to, help to your writing and to your project.
Folks, we've reached our time. Speaking of time, we reached the end of our time. Thank you so much, Raquel.
Thank you.